It was supposed to be a normal day, but it was supposed to be a normal day. You know, the kind where you wake up, brush your teeth, grab a coffee, and go about your routine without expecting anything out of the ordinary. But for Ayan, that one day flipped everything he thought he knew about love, trust, and fate. He wasn't searching for anything special. No grand plans, no signs from the universe. Just a regular day in a regular life until she walked in. It started with a delayed train. Just a few extra minutes on a random platform that should have meant nothing. But those minutes were enough to change everything. There she was, Arisha. Completely unfamiliar, yet strangely familiar. She wasn't doing anything dramatic. Just standing there, lost in her own world. But something about her pulled him in. Like the moment was meant to happen. Like life was giving him a second he wasn't supposed to miss. What followed wasn't some fairy tale with rose petals and perfect lines. It was real, messy, unpredictable, and painfully beautiful. Ayan didn't know then that behind Arisha's soft smile was a storm waiting to be revealed. And Arisha, she didn't expect Ayan to become the one person who could either heal her or break her all over again. As hours turned to days, and days into late-night conversations, quiet glances, and shared secrets, what started as a simple moment turned into a connection neither of them could deny. But love isn't always about butterflies and happy endings. Sometimes, it tests you in ways you never imagined. Because just when Ayan thought he was finally beginning to understand her, something happened that changed everything. Something he wasn't ready for. And that's where it all begins. Ayan couldn't stop thinking about her. That brief encounter at the station played in his mind like a scene from a movie. He didn't even get her name at first. Just a few shared smiles and a passing conversation about how unreliable the trains had become. But it was her eyes that stayed with him, calm on the surface, but hiding something deep. Something she wasn't ready to say out loud. The next day, he went back to the same platform. He told himself it was just coincidence, but he knew it wasn't. Part of him hoped she'd be there again. And she was. Same spot. Same quiet presence. This time they talked longer. Her name was Arisha. She laughed softly when he asked if she came there often and told him that her office was nearby. She spoke little about herself, but when she did, it felt like every word mattered. Over the next few weeks, the random meetings turned into a routine. Not planned, but expected. They shared small details, favorite songs, childhood memories, silly fears. But there was always a distance in her words, like she was guarding a part of herself. Ayan didn't push. He believed that if she trusted him enough, she'd let him in. But one evening changed everything. They were sitting at a quiet roadside cafe, the kind people often forget exists. The sun had nearly set, and the air was thick with monsoon rain waiting to fall. Arisha was unusually silent. She kept glancing at her phone, biting her lip nervously. When Ayan asked if everything was okay, she just nodded and forced a smile. But something was off. It wasn't just a bad day. It was fear. Then her phone rang. She looked at the screen, froze for a second, and declined the call without a word. Ayan noticed.
He didn't ask.
She stood up suddenly and said, "I need to go." No explanation, no goodbye hug like usual. Just a quick, almost panicked exit. And just like that, she disappeared into the crowd, leaving Ayan sitting there, wondering what had just happened. That night, he waited for a message. Nothing came. The next morning, she didn't show up at the station. Not that day, not the next, not even the week after. And that's when Ayan realized there was something she hadn't told him. Something serious. Something that could change everything he thought he knew about her. Ayan tried to move on with his daily life, but everything felt off. Work meetings blurred together, food tasted bland, and even music, the one thing that always brought him peace, felt distant. His mind kept circling back to Arisha. Where did she go? Was she okay? Had he missed a sign that something was wrong? Days turned into weeks. Ayan kept checking the station every evening, hoping she'd show up like before.
But the spot where they used to talk now felt empty.
Like her absence had left a shadow behind. He thought about messaging her, but he realized he never asked for her number. Their bond felt real, but maybe it had only existed in that small space between train arrivals and parting words. Then one night, while scrolling through Instagram, he saw her. Not on her own profile, it was private, but in the background of a tagged photo from a local event page. She looked different. Not scared, not stressed, just serious. She was with a man. Tall, sharply dressed, his hand resting casually on her back like it belonged there. Ayan's chest tightened. Was she in a relationship this whole time? Had he just been imagining something more? But something about that man didn't sit right. There was no warmth in the photo, no smiles. Just tension. Arisha's posture was stiff, her eyes weren't looking at the camera, and her hands were clenched. Ayan zoomed in and noticed a faint bruise on her wrist. It was barely visible, but it was there. That image haunted him. He started digging. The event page mentioned the man's name, Samir Khan. A quick search showed that he was a well-known local businessman. Clean image online, involved in charity work, but the comments under some posts told a different story. Whispers of controlling behavior, rumors of past relationships ending suddenly, and one vague post from a user saying, "He's not who he pretends to be." Ayan's gut told him something was wrong. Maybe Arisha hadn't just disappeared. Maybe she was pulled away. Or worse, trapped in something she couldn't get out of. That night, Ayan couldn't sleep. Every part of him wanted answers. He didn't care if it was dangerous or messy. He just wanted the truth. Because this wasn't just about love anymore. It was about finding her before it was too late. Ayan couldn't shake the feeling that Arisha was in trouble. Every instinct told him that her sudden disappearance and that man, Samir Khan, were connected. He didn't know how deep things went, but he was sure of one thing. Arisha didn't leave by choice. And if she needed help, he wasn't going to just sit back and do nothing. He started showing up at places where Samir had been spotted. Public events, fundraisers, even business expos. It felt ridiculous at times, like he was chasing shadows. But then, one evening at a gallery opening, he saw him. Samir, laughing with a group of men in suits. And right beside him was Arisha. She looked tired. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. She was dressed perfectly, but Ayan could see through the polished look. There was no spark, no light in her face. She didn't notice him, but he stood frozen, hidden behind a display, watching her from across the room. Just seeing her again made his heart race, but what hit harder was the quiet fear he saw in her eyes when she glanced at Samir. Ayan waited outside, heart pounding, unsure of what to do. When Arisha finally came out, she was alone, walking quickly toward a black car. Before she could open the door, he called out her name. She stopped. For a second, she didn't turn. Then slowly, she looked over her shoulder. Her face changed instantly, from surprise to something closer to fear. "Ayan, you shouldn't be here," she said in a low voice, glancing around nervously. "I've been looking for you," he replied, stepping closer. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer. Instead, she shook her head slightly, her eyes pleading. "Please just go. Forget you saw me." "I can't. Arisha, talk to me. What's going on? Who is this guy?" Her lips trembled like she wanted to say something but couldn't. Then she whispered, "He's not who you think. He's dangerous. And if he finds out you're here..." The car door suddenly opened. Samir stepped out, calm but cold. "Is there a problem here?" Arisha froze. Ayan stood tall, heart beating fast, but trying not to show fear. "Just saying hello to a friend," he said casually. Samir nodded slowly, eyes sharp. "Well, she's busy tonight. So maybe it's time to go." Ayan looked at Arisha one last time. Her eyes said everything she couldn't out loud. She was stuck, scared, and asking him, without words, not to make it worse. He backed off, giving her a silent promise with just a look. "I'm not giving up on you." That night, I knew this wasn't just about a lost love story anymore. This was real. Something was seriously wrong, and Arisha was in the middle of it. Maybe she'd gotten involved with the wrong person. Maybe she was hiding from something darker. But one thing was clear, time was running out. And whatever the truth was, he had to find it before it was too late. Ayan couldn't sleep that night. Arisha's face, the fear in her voice, and Samir's cold stare. All of it played on repeat in his head. He had gotten close, but it wasn't enough. She was still stuck, still silenced by something she was too afraid to name. And now that Samir had seen him, things felt more dangerous than ever. But Ayan wasn't going to step back. If anything, that moment outside the car had only made his resolve stronger. The next morning, he did something he hadn't done before. He went to the police. He didn't have proof, just instinct and a few vague leads. He explained the situation to an officer, trying to sound calm and rational. But the moment he mentioned Samir Khan's name, the tone shifted. The officer looked uncomfortable, even a little nervous. He told Ayan that unless Arisha herself came forward with a complaint, there was nothing they could do. People like him, he said quietly, have a way of making things disappear. Frustrated, Ayan walked out feeling more helpless than ever. But just as he was about to give up for the day, his phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. The message was short. Meet me where the train stops at 6. Don't be late. Don't tell anyone. His heart skipped. It had to be her. He got there early, scanning the platform every few seconds. The train came and went. Then, from behind one of the pillars, Arisha stepped out, hoodie pulled low over her face. She looked thinner, more fragile than before. She didn't speak right away. She just stood there, looking over her shoulder like someone might be watching. He's not just some rich guy, she finally said. Samir, he's into things. Illegal things. I didn't know when I first met him. But once I found out, he wouldn't let me leave. Said I knew too much. Ayan listened, stunned. What kind of things? Arisha hesitated. Fake businesses. Shell companies. And people. He controls people. Tracks them. Pays others to do it. He knows where I am all the time. Ayan felt his stomach drop. Arisha, you need to get out of this. I've tried. He's threatened my family. Said if I ran, they'd be the first to suffer. And then she said something Ayan didn't expect.
I wasn't supposed to meet you that day.
But when I did, he found out. He thought I was trying to leave him. That's why he pulled me back. Everything suddenly made sense. The missed messages. The silence. The fear. Ayan took a deep breath. Then let me help. We can go to someone else. A journalist. A lawyer. Someone who won't look away. Arisha shook her head, eyes wide. We don't have time. He's planning something bigger. And if I don't do what he says, someone will get hurt. Before Ayan could ask more, she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd again. That moment changed everything. This wasn't just a love story anymore. This was a race against time. Ayan didn't sleep that night. He knew Arisha was right. This wasn't just about love anymore. It was about survival. He contacted an old friend who worked with an investigative journalist known for exposing high-level corruption. After a tense meeting in a small cafe, they came up with a plan. Arisha had to get proof, documents, recordings, anything that tied Samir to his crimes. It was risky, but without it, no one would listen. 2 nights later, Arisha sent Ayan a message. Just 2 words. I have it. They agreed to meet in a quiet park on the edge of the city. It was late, and the fog hung low. Arisha arrived, shaken but determined. She handed Ayan a flash drive. Everything's on here, she whispered. Company names, transactions, surveillance footage. It's enough to bring him down. But just as they were about to leave, headlights flashed in the distance. A black SUV pulled up fast. Ayan grabbed Arisha's hand and ran. They ducked behind trees, cutting through the fog. Shouts echoed behind them. Ayan's heart pounded as they reached the edge of the park, where the journalist's car waited. They jumped in and sped off. The next 48 hours were a blur. The story went public. News channels, social media, everywhere. The documents were real. Samir's empire began to crumble. Arrests followed. Corrupt officials were named. And most importantly, Arisha was safe. For the first time in months, she could breathe freely. Ayan and Arisha sat together at the same cafe where they first noticed something was wrong. Everything felt lighter. She looked at him and smiled, this time genuinely. You saved me, she said. He shook his head. No, we saved each other. But just as the weight began to lift, Arisha's phone buzzed. No name, just a number. And one chilling message. You think it's over? She looked at Ayan, eyes wide with fear. Because sometimes, even when you escape the storm, the shadows still follow. Ayan read the message over Arisha's shoulder, his jaw tightening. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Just silence, like the world had paused again. But this time, Arisha didn't panic. She took a deep breath and locked her phone. Let him try, she said quietly. I'm done running. In the weeks that followed, the noise around Samir's case grew louder. More victims came forward, some former employees, others who had been too scared to speak before. The investigations went deeper than anyone had imagined. Turns out, Samir wasn't working alone. There were others, partners, investors, people with clean faces and dirty hands. But thanks to the leaked evidence and Arisha's courage, the network began to break apart. Police increased Arisha's protection. Ayan stayed close. Their bond, once born from a quiet platform and casual conversations, had been tested by fear, danger, and secrets. But now, it stood stronger than ever. Not just a love story, but a story of trust, survival, and quiet strength. Ayan finally returned to his music, writing again with a clearer mind. Arisha started working with a nonprofit helping women in abusive or high-control relationships, something she never thought she'd have the voice to do. Every day didn't feel perfect, but it felt real. And that was enough. One afternoon, while sitting under a tree near the station where it had all begun, Ayan asked, "Do you ever wish we met differently?" Arisha smiled softly.
No.
If life had gone normally, we never would have met at all. Sometimes love doesn't show up wrapped in comfort. Sometimes it walks through fire. And when it survives, it becomes something unbreakable. Their story wasn't about fairy tales. It was about choosing each other, even when it was hard. About standing up, speaking out, and finding light in places you didn't expect. Because what started as a normal day turned into something unforgettable. And sometimes, those are the days that change everything.